Hello, my chicklets. Thank you for stopping by. Today, I am bringing you another story by EduPunk Noob. This one is called Coffee for Sanders. It is an intralogical story. Edu does tend to write a lot of intralogical stories, and I love every single one of them. I'm not going to have the opportunity to read a lot of the longer stories that Edu has written, so I would really advise you to check out the links in the description and find their stories on AO3 to go ahead and read through all of them. My personal favorite is not one we will be covering this month, and it is called Happily Ever After. So please make sure to check that out. Leave them lots of kudos and comments, and let me jump into today's story. Again, that is Coffee for Sanders. Remus stifled a yawn and crouched down, searching for a new pack of cups from underneath the order counter. It was early, not even 8 a.m. yet, but Remus had already been at work for over 2 hours. Ah, the glamorous life of a part-time barista. Sifting through dozens of plastic-wrapped tubes of to-go cups, he searched for the large 20-ounce size. Finding it at last, he tugged, holding up the mounds of medium-sized cups piled on top of it. Who the fuck drinks a medium coffee? Go big or go home and make your own, he muttered to himself. 16-ounce black coffee, please. The voice was precise, polite, and perfectly modulated to carry over the squealing, rushing sound of the milk steamer behind Remus. This dude, I guess. Name, sir? Remus asked without looking up. Full customer service voice activated, neon green Sharpie in one hand and a paper 16-ounce cup in the other. He'd be damned if he had to hear yet another lecture from his boss about the proper way to speak to a customer. Sanders, the man said simply. You got it. Remus's voice died when he finally looked up at his customer and met his eyes. Those eyes. Clear, dark blue, with the tiniest flecks of teal around his pupils, the right eye just a shade darker than the left. Those eyes. The man looked back, a small smile hiding behind those deep cobalt pools. Yes. Remus stared into his eyes. Remy walked past, giving him a little nudge. That nudge rebooted Remus's brain, and his mind fully re-engaged. Yes, sir, you got it. That'll be $2.85, please. Sanders tapped his card, and Remus rushed to make the best fucking 16-ounce black coffee he'd ever made. He was going to make the best fucking 16-ounce black coffee this universe had ever seen. A few moments later, Coffee for Sanders? He called, voice quietly dropping into a low murmur as the man came out from behind the column blocking Remus's view. He swallowed dryly, again falling into these bright blue eyes. Sanders glanced down at his name tag before looking back up into his eyes. Thank you, Remus. Remus leaned against the counter, silently cursing the 3 feet of laminated faux marble countertop separating them. Any time, he sighed. 1 week later, Remus was elbows deep in the guts of the broken espresso machine, swearing lightly under his breath at the small hot water spigot that just didn't want to reconnect. Attention fully devoted to the intractable tube, he didn't notice a customer approaching the counter until he heard the man's order. 16-ounce black coffee, please. Coming right. Remus tore his eyes from the machine and once again had his voice stolen by those beautiful blue eyes. The corner of the man's mouth twitched upwards. Does he know? Am I being that obvious? Remus cleared his throat before shaking himself, reaching for a cup without looking, plucking his marker from his apron. Sanders, right? The man tilted his head, that tiny Mona Lisa smile back on his lips. Remarkable memory. He bowed his head a few degrees. Yes, thank you, Remus. Remus prepared his coffee, again making the best cup of black coffee humanly possible. Coffee for Sanders? He called again from behind the pickup counter. Sanders was waiting off to the side. Was he watching me make it? He nodded silently, accepting the cup from Remus's hand. Thank you, Remus. Remus smiled mutely as Sanders turned and left the shop, all words escaping his grasp. As Remus was taking the next customer's order, Remy tapped his shoulder. Hey, Remus, your name tag must have fallen off when you clocked in this morning. I found it in the back by the lockers. He placed the small plastic rectangle on the counter next to him. Remus stared down at it, feeling the empty space in its usual spot on his apron before looking back at the door where Sanders had left a few minutes ago. A lopsided grin spread on his face. The next week, at 7:46 a.m. on the dot, Sanders was back. "Good morning, Remus." 16-ounce Remus grinned at Sanders, writing on a to-go cup without looking. "Black coffee, coming right up." He prepared Sanders' coffee, humming as he filled the cup from the freshest pot. "Coffee for Sanders?" he called, holding the cup out toward the man, his thumb covering the little label of the customer's name. Sanders smiled and thanked him, turning to leave the shop. Remy stood behind Remus, arms loosely crossed in front of him. "How many more times are you going to let that man leave without giving him your number, babe? You've obviously got the hots for him." Remus grinned. "0?" As his phone text alert sounded, he pulled it out, checking his messages. He had a text from a number not yet in his contacts. "Hello, Remus. Are you free after your shift today?" Remus looked up, smile broadening when he saw Sanders standing outside the shop. Sanders sipped his coffee and smiled back at him through the plated glass window, cell phone still gripped in his other hand. Thank you all for listening. Again, that story was Coffee for Sanders. This one just makes me so giddy and so happy. It's freaking cute. I do hope y'all enjoyed it, and I hope you have a wonderful day.